Hey, what's up, everybody? Truth Seeker here. Well, we just got more news on the fact of how big of a genius we all are. We are way ahead of the game, everybody. The stuff that we've been trying to point out for 4 months, 5 months now, that we've been called tinfoil hat wearers, conspiracy theorists, all these things. But no, we've been telling people forever now that there's a lot of fake COVID death reportings going on, and this is like an inflated number to cause a fear and a panic across the whole entire world. What's really happening is literally normal deaths. These are the same deaths that would have happened with or without the coronavirus. I guarantee these same people was going to die. They haven't really found any cases where the coronavirus is the actual culprit at the last end of the line. It's like they always say, well, it led to the cause of the death or blah, blah, blah. But they will never say that coronavirus is what actually killed them. Now we're to a point to where we can actually treat it on demand. So if you're starting to show signs of it, we could give you the shot and all of a sudden, boom, you're better the next day. Like literally that fast. For some reason, though, they still want to scare you about a second wave, though. Like there's nothing you could do about it. Everybody wear masks. Everybody stay indoors. I don't know. It's just insanity, but you guys got to see this.
173 deaths in the state of Florida and more than 10,000 new cases overnight. Meantime, the United States just surpassed 4 million cases.
After trending down for the past couple of days, the percent positives are going in the wrong direction in all three major South Florida counties. Palm Beach County is at 11.3%, while Broward County is at 14.1%, and Miami-Dade County sits at 18.5%. New questions tonight about the accuracy of the death count after the CBS 12 News I-Team uncovers several cases of people listed as COVID deaths, but clearly died from something else.
I-Team reporter Danielle Wall has more on those discrepancies and the changes that the medical examiner's office is now making after our investigation.
A 90-year-old man who fell and died from complications of a hip fracture. A 60-year-old man dead from a gunshot wound to the head. These are some of the deaths in Palm Beach County recently and incorrectly labeled as COVID deaths in medical examiner records. The I-Team reviewed a copy of the Palm Beach County Medical Examiner's COVID death spreadsheet. It has 581 deaths listed. All of them tested positive for COVID-19. But CBS 12 News noticed 8 cases in which the person died of something completely different, like Parkinson's or a neck fracture, and COVID was not listed as the cause of death. We wanted to know why they were still being listed as a coronavirus fatality.
I think it's completely misleading.
Rachel Eade has the same questions. She's a Palm Beach County resident reviewing the ME's records, and she found out of all of these cases, just 169 were listed as COVID-19 infections without any contributing illnesses. She thinks all of the others should be reported with more context, like comorbidities.
I understand that maybe they want to be safe in counting those numbers initially, but we are 4 or 5 months in, we have more information and we have that data. We need to remove the COVID cases that are not exclusive COVID, and we need to be giving people that information.
Governor DeSantis on Fox News this morning said after an Orange County motorcycle crash was recorded as a COVID death, Florida's fatality count needs another review.
I think the public, when they see the fatality figures, they want to know who died because they caught COVID. If you're just in a car accident, and we've had other instances in which it just was no real relationship that has been counted. So we want to look at that and see, how pervasive that issue is as well.
We took our investigation to the Palm Beach County Medical Examiner's office. Their operations manager took a look at the cases that we flagged and admitted they were errors. He says the staff is working to remove the erroneous deaths and says we should see an update in the next report that they release tomorrow. In West Palm Beach, Danielle Wass, CBS 12 News.
I think the really crazy part, though, is the double sighting that's going on here. The two stories that we keep getting played on. Like, you guys only watch one network, so you're only hearing one side of the story. But when you hear Dr. Fauci on 60 Minutes, this is what he says about masks.
Now, in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them and people who are ill.
Amazing, isn't it? It's just so amazing how all this stuff works. Oh, super, super crazy. So let's follow up with the I told you so's now. Out of everybody that already reported that we've been reporting COVID deaths, no matter what it is they died from, really.
Well, you don't know what you have. Do you think you're getting honest numbers from some of these countries? Do you really believe those numbers in this vast country called China, and that they have a certain number of cases and a certain number of deaths? Does anybody really believe that? Here's the story. We report everything. We're reporting the cases, and our reporting is good. We're reporting every death. In fact, I see this morning where New York added 3,000 deaths because they died, and they're now saying, rather than it was a heart attack, they're saying it was a heart attack caused by this. So they're adding. If you look at it, that's it. And everything we have is documented, reported.
You just said, I think is critically important. Can you repeat what you just said, please?
Well, last Friday, I received a 7-page document that sort of told me that if I had an 86-year-old patient that had pneumonia but was never tested for COVID-19, but sometime after she came down with pneumonia, we learned that she had been exposed to her son who had no symptoms, but later on was identified with COVID-19, that it would be appropriate to diagnose on the death certificate COVID-19. Now, we've not done that. If someone has the pneumonia after and it's in the middle of a flu epidemic, and I don't have a test on influenza, I don't diagnose influenza on the death certificate. I will say this elderly patient died of pneumonia.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but my heart is sinking right now as you're telling me this. You're a doctor. Why in the world would they be sending you out information to fill out death certificates, whether the person's been diagnosed with COVID-19 or not, but then to say in the death certificate this person's death was caused by COVID-19? That does not sound right to me.
I went to the person in our office who does most of the death certificates over the last 10, 20 years, and I said, does this sound right? I had her look at the documents that I printed off, and she said, well, we've always been told that you always put down just facts. You don't put down any probabilities. You don't put any presumptions down. It's just what you know. And so this is concerning, and it actually gets to your point, Chris. When we start talking about the data that goes into the modeling, we have to ask ourselves a question. Are we being forthright? Are we sharing with the public? Minnesota, North Dakota, we don't need to be having it sugar-coated. We want to know what's going into your modeling.
So with that being said, why would they want to skew the number of deaths due to COVID-19?
Well, fear is a great way to control people, and I worry about that. I worry that sometimes we're so darn interested in just jazzing up the fear factor.
If someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
Now, I can't imagine if someone comes in with coronavirus, goes to an ICU, and they have an underlying heart condition and they die, they're going to say cause of death, heart attack. I cannot see that happening.
But then you hear this jackass talking on the news and NPR saying this.
Can you talk about PPE for the general public?
Well, the best PPE for the general public, if possible, right now, is to maintain the physical and social distancing. But as we've said, and I think all of us would agree, there are certain circumstances in which it is beyond your control when you need to do necessary things, like go to the drugstore and get your medication, go to the grocery store and get your food, that in fact you need some supplementation to just physical distancing. And that's the reason why some time ago, the recommendation was made, I believe it was Dr. Redfield at the CDC who first said that, about getting some sort of a covering. We don't want to call it a mask because back then we were concerned we would be taking masks away from the healthcare providers, but some sort of mask-like facial covering, I think for the time being, should be a very regular part of how we prevent the spread of infection. And in fact, the more and more as you go outside, right here and where I'm sitting in Washington, D.C., you can see many people out there with masks on, which gives me some degree of comfort that people are taking this very seriously.
All I know is it's a crock. It really is a crock, and the only thing you could do is just use your common sense, people. We've survived so many generations of plagues and everything else already. Just use some common sense. Wash your hands. But whatever you do, do not buy into what the mainstream media is feeding you at all. For more news headlines, please check out joshhu.net. We'll give you all the latest headlines across the United States and put it into a nice readable format just for you. So come check out Josh Who News at joshhu.net. Also have an app available in the Google Play Store.
Please subscribe to our channel, like our video, and comment below, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace! And don't forget to click the notification bell.